Did you ever get stuck when building a city for your game world? Hi everyone, Arial here. In this video we will dive into settlement building. We'll look at a few examples from literature and movies and of course D&D and try to understand the significance of a given settlement in our setting and story. By the way, I happen to have a spare copy of Mordenkainen's Tome, so if you're interested in that, keep watching. A few weeks ago I spoke with Clay about GMing like we sometimes do, and I told him that world building is all about asking the right questions. Clay told me that actually it's all about answering the right questions, and he's right. Simply throwing questions out there won't make a world appear. But my point in this video, and in many other world building videos, is to give you a set of questions that will make you think. I can't answer these questions for you, and even if I could, I wouldn't. That would rob you of the fun of creating something of your own. What I am going to do then is to inspire thought. Settlements are more than just a collection of buildings and people. They have a role in our story. Think about the Shire in the Lord of the Rings series. The Hobbit village was a starting point for their campaign, but it wasn't just that. It played another role in the grand scheme of things. I think Matt Colville referred to it in one of his videos. The Shire was home to the hobbits, an example of good in Middle-earth that stood in stark opposition to the dark world they were about to step into.
We've got the Shire. Maybe we should go.
Fires of Isengard will spread, and the woods of Tuckborough and Buckland will burn, and all that was once green and good in this world will be gone. There won't be a Shire, Pippin.
The Shire is a place worth defending, and that motivated the hobbits on their mission. They realized that if they were to fail, the Shire would cease to exist under the rule of Sauron. Now, I wouldn't call that hobbit village an important settlement in the world of Middle-earth, but it's important for this story because it's important to the characters. This is their home, and the place where everything began. So when we think of a settlement, the question we should start with is, what is the purpose of this settlement in our story? If the settlement is meant to be a night stop on the way somewhere else, it's not really important. We can get by with a name, a tavern, and a couple of NPCs. But if it's more meaningful than that, we should put some effort into building it within our game world. There's not much to say about the subject because if the settlement is important to your story, you will immediately know it from your answer. It's that simple. Once we decide a settlement is important, we'll start building it within our setting. Let's do that now. Pick a city you are familiar with. It could be anything from your game world or any fantastic city from a book or movie. Do you have it? Good. Let's begin. Who lives there? Is it inhabited by one specific race? Is it multiracial? Does it have a minority group within it? In the world of Dragon Age, the elves are a conquered race. They forgot most of their past, and some of the big human cities have poor elven neighborhoods called alien ages. This minority is a great catalyst for tension within the city, which is great for us GMs. What is the size of the settlement? A small village like the one in the Shire? A plain-spanning city like Ravnica of Magic the Gathering's universe? Something in between. In smaller places, people tend to know each other more intimately. Smaller places can't accommodate for some things we have in larger cities, so we aren't likely to find Thieves Guild or any other big organizations there. The things that do exist in such a place will help us define it better. If the tiny village still boasts a chapel, it tells us something about the people who live there. In settlements of larger scale, there's room for big organizations that compete for influence, and generally more room for diversity. Some cities are so large and diverse that we can think of them as several adjacent settlements that share certain properties but are otherwise entirely different locations. Where is the settlement located? What kind of terrain surrounds it? Plains? Desert? Mountains? Maybe the city simply floats in the sky and is surrounded by nothing but air. Or maybe it exists in a plain of fire, decorated with bridges that cross rivers of magma. Each environment provides a set of challenges that the people will need to overcome in order to survive. The physical location is important, but we should also take note where it is located politically. A city in the center of a large kingdom might be protected due to the presence of the military, but small villages in the outskirts are not, and they are more prone to banditry or monster attacks. What is the history of the settlement? Cities don't usually spawn out of the void. What was the original purpose of the settlement? Was it planned to be the size that it is today? A small village could easily double or triple in size if a new road passes through it. Or perhaps a small mining endeavor in the nearby hills proved very profitable and lured many fortune seekers. When discussing the history of a settlement, we should consider how it changed through the course of its existence. This is especially true for old places. What event changed it? Can you think of one particularly important? How can we make these events apparent in our game when the players actually encounter it? Take Neverwinter for example. If you search for the map online, you'll find two versions. One of them is scarred by a large chasm, which was created in a series of events generally known as the Ruining. This is a perfect example of a historical event that is apparent to our players. The addition of multiple contradicting maps presents it very well. What is the culture of the settlement? What sets the people aside from the rest? What values are held in high regard? What are some common traits that most people from this place share? Is there a clear social hierarchy? Menzo Baranzan is a drow city in the Forgotten Realms. The drow have a very distinct matriarchal society. They are obsessed with their social station and their ambition leads to infighting and treachery. The drow are notorious slavers because they believe themselves superior to all other races. Knowing that will help us create an NPC on the fly should we need one. When thinking of settlements, we should pay attention to their social structure. Who rules them and how? A benevolent lord that cares for his people. A nominated council that can't reach a single decision due to infighting. Maybe a wealthy tyrant that treats everyone beneath him like slaves. Who enforces the law in your city? Which factions influence it from within? It could be temples, merchants, criminals, mages, many others. Understanding the power dynamic between prominent factions could help us build entire adventures, like we did in some of the previous videos. Can you think of an influential faction in your example? The next step is to consider the external influences on our settlement. Just like factions, settlements do not exist in a vacuum, so it makes sense to ask who are the enemies of our settlement, which allies can it call upon for aid, how would it defend itself against an invading force. We can create tension in our setting by forming relationships between settlements. So for example, we could say the people of a certain village hate the Empire because the taxes are too high and they don't really get anything in return. They don't really want to be part of this empire. Think about what would happen should they stop paying. How long will it take before this empire sends a force to settle the matter? Which side will the adventurers pick? Fantasy cities come in a variety of shapes and forms. Can you imagine what your settlement looks like? Try to visualize the streets. How are the people dressed? What is the architecture like? Can you describe how the city looks like from afar? Remember Minas Tirith?
Minas Tirith, City of Kings.
Beautiful, isn't it? Our fantasy cities are limited only by our imagination. There's one last thing I want to say on the subject. As GMs, it's our responsibility to relay the information to the players. Telling them about it is good, but showing them is a lot better. There's no better way to make players aware of the conflict between factions than bringing them into the table with NPCs. Want to show them that this part of the city is poor? Describe the child that approaches them and asks for copper, and a dozen more that try to hide in the alleyways. It's things like that that make the world memorable and drive the player characters to care more about it. I love how creative this community is, so I decided to make something for you all. We're going to have the first Beyond the Screen city building contest. To participate, you will need to do two things. First, you'll create a city of your own using the guidelines in this video. and post it in the comments below. Your entry should fit in a single Google Doc page with the default font. More technical details will appear on the screen and you can find more of them in the description, so make sure you check them out before you submit. The second thing you'll need to do is send me an email at beyondthescreenrpg@gmail.com. This email should contain your YouTube username so I can contact you if you win. You have my word that I wouldn't use it for anything other than that. I will receive submissions until the 9th of November, which is approximately 2 weeks from now. And the winner will be announced on the 21st of November in a future video. And the winner will also receive this beautiful book. I love this book so much. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me here today. And until next time, you are awesome, keep being awesome, and I'll see you beyond the screen.